The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of St. Andrews University as Catherine Middleton hurried toward her art history lecture, her canvas bag bouncing against her hip with each step. She had no idea that this ordinary Tuesday would mark the beginning of something extraordinary. The 20-year-old student from Berkshire was focused on making it through another day of university life, balancing her studies with part-time work at a local boutique to help cover expenses her middle-class family couldn't quite stretch to meet. In the same lecture hall, Prince William sat 3 rows ahead, trying his best to blend in with the other students despite the discreet security presence that followed him everywhere. The second in line to the British throne had chosen St. Andrews partly for its reputation for academic excellence, but also because it offered him something he had rarely experienced: a chance at normalcy. The weight of his future responsibilities as king felt lighter here among ancient stone buildings and students who treated him more like William Wales, the slightly awkward young man struggling with medieval art, than as a future monarch. Catherine noticed him immediately, as did most of the female students in their year. But while others whispered and pointed, she found herself genuinely curious about the quiet young man who seemed to carry an invisible burden on his shoulders. She had grown up reading about the royal family in newspapers and magazines, watching the tragedy of his mother's death unfold when she was just 15. There was something in his eyes that spoke of loss and responsibility beyond his years, yet also a determination to forge his own path. Their first real conversation happened quite by accident in the university library. Catherine was researching a paper on Italian Renaissance art when she noticed William struggling with a particularly dense academic text about Byzantine influences on medieval painting. The prince looked frustrated, running his hands through his hair as he stared at pages filled with complex terminology and historical references that seemed to blur together. "That book is impossible," Catherine said quietly, sliding into the chair across from him. "Professor Hamilton assigned it to torture us, I think. The translation is awful, and half the references don't make sense without the accompanying images." William looked up, surprised by her casual tone. Most students either avoided him entirely or approached with obvious nervousness. Catherine seemed refreshingly normal, treating him like any other struggling classmate. "I've been on the same page for 20 minutes, he admitted with a rueful smile. "I'm starting to think medieval art appreciation isn't my strongest subject." "It's not about appreciation," Catherine laughed softly. "It's about understanding the context. These artists weren't just creating beautiful things. They were documenting their entire worldview, their religious beliefs, their understanding of power and hierarchy. Once you see that, the techniques become much more interesting." She pulled out her own notes, pages covered in neat handwriting and small sketches that brought the dry academic material to life. For the next hour, they worked through the challenging text together, Catherine explaining complex concepts in simple terms, while William offered insights about historical events that came from a lifetime of royal education about British history and politics. As weeks passed, their study sessions became a regular occurrence. The library became their sanctuary, a place where William could forget about photographers and protocol, and Catherine could see beyond the crown to the intelligent, thoughtful young man beneath. They discovered shared interests beyond their coursework. Both loved the outdoors, enjoyed skiing, and had a dry sense of humor that made even the most tedious lectures bearable when they could exchange knowing glances across the lecture hall. Their friendship deepened during the harsh Scottish winter. When Catherine caught a terrible flu that kept her bedridden in her small dormitory room for a week, William surprised her by showing up with homemade soup from his housemate and a stack of movies to help her recovery. He sat in the uncomfortable dormitory chair, keeping her company while she recuperated, sharing stories about his gap-year travels and his genuine nervousness about living up to the expectations placed upon him. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be completely ordinary," he confessed one evening as snow fell outside her window. "To make mistakes without them becoming front-page news, to date someone without photographers analyzing every expression, every gesture." Catherine listened without judgment, understanding that for all his privilege, William faced challenges that most people couldn't imagine. "You're more ordinary than you think," she told him. "You worry about exams. You struggle with difficult professors. You eat too much pizza at midnight when you're stressed. The extraordinary part is how you handle everything else on top of that." The shift from friendship to something deeper happened gradually, so naturally that neither could pinpoint exactly when it began. They found themselves seeking each other out not just for study sessions, but for walks along the dramatic Scottish coastline, for quiet dinners at small restaurants where William could relax away from curious stares, for long conversations that stretched late into the night about everything from art and literature to their hopes for the future. Catherine began to notice the way William's face lit up when he talked about his charity work, particularly his passion for conservation and helping disadvantaged youth. She saw beyond the public image to a young man who genuinely wanted to use his position to make a positive difference in the world. Similarly, William was drawn to Catherine's intelligence, her genuine kindness, and her ability to remain grounded despite the increasingly unusual circumstances of their friendship. The moment that changed everything happened during a university charity fashion show in their second year. Catherine had reluctantly agreed to participate, partly to support a good cause, and partly because her friends had convinced her it would be fun. She walked down the makeshift runway in an elegant black evening dress that transformed her from the casual student William knew into someone breathtakingly sophisticated. William, who had attended dozens of formal events where beautiful women in expensive gowns were commonplace, found himself genuinely stunned. This wasn't about the dress or the dramatic lighting or the excited crowd. This was about seeing Catherine in a completely new light, recognizing that the intelligent, funny, caring friend he had come to treasure was also an extraordinarily beautiful woman who could command a room with quiet confidence. After the show, as students celebrated at a nearby pub, William found Catherine outside, taking a break from the crowded celebration. She had changed back into jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking more like the Catherine he knew. But something had shifted in how he saw her, and perhaps in how she saw him looking at her. "You looked beautiful tonight," he said simply, the words carrying more weight than either had expected. Catherine felt her heart skip, recognizing that they had crossed an invisible line from friendship into something more complex and potentially wonderful. "Thank you," she replied softly, meeting his eyes with a new awareness of the possibilities that lay between them. Their relationship evolved slowly, built on the strong foundation of genuine friendship they had established. William was careful not to rush things, knowing that once their relationship became public, Catherine's life would change forever. They spent months enjoying the simple pleasure of being young and in love, taking walks through the Scottish countryside, sharing quiet dinners, and supporting each other through the challenges of university life. Catherine proved herself to be remarkably adaptable to the unique pressures of dating a future king. She handled the inevitable media attention with grace and dignity, never seeking publicity, but also never appearing overwhelmed by the circumstances. She understood intuitively that William needed someone who could be both his anchor and his companion, someone strong enough to stand beside him as he prepared for a lifetime of public service. Their fellow students, initially curious about the unusual romance, gradually accepted them as simply another couple navigating the complexities of young love. The close-knit university community provided a protective bubble that allowed their relationship to develop naturally, without the intense scrutiny that would follow them in later years. William found in Catherine someone who challenged him intellectually, supported him emotionally, and shared his values about service and family. She encouraged his environmental activism, celebrated his academic achievements, and provided a stabilizing influence during moments when the pressure of his future role felt overwhelming. For Catherine, William represented not just romance, but partnership with someone who understood the importance of using privilege responsibly. As their second year drew to a close, both realized that what had begun as friendship had grown into something profound and lasting. They had built a relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection that would prove strong enough to weather the extraordinary challenges that lay ahead. Neither could have imagined that their chance meeting in an art history lecture would lead to a love story that would captivate millions and ultimately reshape the British monarchy for a new generation. The relationship between William and Catherine deepened significantly during their third year at St. Andrews, when they made the decision to share a student house with two close friends. The arrangement allowed them to experience something approaching normal domestic life, taking turns cooking meals, dealing with household chores, and hosting casual gatherings for their university friends. For William, this represented the closest thing to ordinary family life he had ever experienced, while Catherine found herself gradually adapting to the unique rhythms of dating someone whose life was governed by royal protocol and security requirements. Living together revealed the small, intimate details that transformed friendship into deep love. Catherine discovered that William was surprisingly domestic, enjoying cooking elaborate Sunday breakfasts and taking pride in maintaining their small garden. William learned that Catherine was fiercely organized, keeping detailed lists and schedules that somehow managed to accommodate both their academic commitments and the increasing demands of his royal duties. They developed private jokes, shared routines, and the comfortable intimacy that comes from truly knowing another person. Their relationship faced its first serious test when photographs of them together began appearing regularly in British tabloids. The media attention was unlike anything Catherine had experienced, with photographers following her to lectures, to her part-time job, and even to her family home in Berkshire during university holidays. The intense scrutiny was overwhelming, particularly for someone who had grown up with normal privacy and the freedom to make mistakes without public consequence. William watched with growing concern as Catherine struggled to adjust to this new reality. He had grown up with constant media attention and had developed coping mechanisms, but he realized that asking someone to willingly enter this world required tremendous courage and sacrifice. The guilt of potentially destroying Catherine's normal life weighed heavily on him, leading to late-night conversations about whether their relationship was fair to her. "I never asked for this level of attention," Catherine confided to him one evening after a particularly aggressive pursuit by photographers had left her shaken. "I just wanted to finish university and figure out my career. Now I can't even go to the grocery store without someone taking pictures and analyzing what I'm buying." William held her close, feeling the weight of responsibility for changing her life so dramatically. "I understand if this is too much," he said quietly. "I would never blame you for walking away. This life isn't what anyone would choose for themselves." But Catherine surprised him with her resilience. After initial struggles with the media attention, she began developing strategies for managing the pressure. She sought advice from William's private secretary about dealing with photographers, learned to dress more carefully when appearing in public, and gradually built the confidence needed to handle unexpected encounters with the press. More importantly, she began to understand that this attention was part of loving William, and she made a conscious decision that he was worth the sacrifice. Their final year at university was marked by growing speculation about their future together. Every public appearance was analyzed for signs of an impending engagement, and Catherine found herself subject to intense scrutiny about everything from her family background to her career prospects. The pressure was particularly difficult because their relationship, while serious, was still evolving naturally without the timeline pressures imposed by public expectations. William was deeply protective of Catherine during this period, working closely with his security team and press office to minimize invasive coverage while still acknowledging that public interest was inevitable. He insisted on maintaining boundaries around their private time together, sometimes making difficult choices about which events to attend and which social occasions to decline in order to preserve space for their relationship to develop authentically. The couple graduated together in June 2005, a milestone that marked both the end of their protected university bubble and the beginning of a new phase in their relationship. The graduation ceremony was emotional for both of them, representing not just academic achievement, but the conclusion of 4 years that had fundamentally shaped who they were as individuals and as a couple. Following graduation, they faced the challenge of maintaining their relationship while pursuing separate career paths and dealing with increased media scrutiny. William began his military training with the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, a demanding program that would prepare him for service with the British Army. Catherine moved to London, where she found work with a fashion accessories company while exploring her interests in photography and art. The physical separation was difficult for both of them, but it also provided important space for individual growth. William threw himself into his military training, finding satisfaction in the rigorous physical and mental challenges that prepared him for potential service in active combat zones. The military environment provided him with leadership experience and a deeper understanding of service that would prove invaluable in his future royal role. Catherine used this period to establish her own professional identity, working hard to prove herself in her new career while continuing to handle media attention with increasing sophistication. She developed a keen understanding of fashion and style that would later become one of her most influential public attributes. But more importantly, she built confidence in her ability to succeed independently while supporting William's career and royal obligations. Their relationship during this period was tested by long separations, demanding schedules, and continued intense media speculation. There were moments of doubt and difficulty, periods when the pressure of their unique circumstances strained their connection. Both were young people trying to figure out their adult lives while managing extraordinary external pressures that most couples never face. The breaking point came in 2007, when the cumulative stress of media attention, career pressures, and the weight of an undefined future led them to make the difficult decision to temporarily separate. The break was devastating for both of them, but it also provided necessary clarity about what they truly wanted from life and from each other. William realized during their separation how much Catherine had become an integral part of his vision for the future. He had found in her not just a romantic partner, but someone who genuinely understood the demands of royal life and was willing to embrace them. More importantly, she brought out the best in him, encouraging his charitable interests, supporting his military ambitions, and providing the emotional stability he needed to handle his royal responsibilities effectively. Catherine, meanwhile, discovered that despite the challenges of dating a future king, she couldn't imagine her life without William. The separation gave her time to fully understand what she would be accepting if they married, but it also confirmed that she was ready and willing to take on those responsibilities. She had grown from university student unsure about her future into a confident young woman ready to dedicate her life to public service alongside the man she loved. Their reconciliation later that year was private and deeply emotional. Both had gained important perspective about themselves and their relationship during their time apart. William proposed in November 2010 during a private holiday in Kenya, offering Catherine the engagement ring that had belonged to his beloved mother, Princess Diana. The gesture was deeply symbolic, representing not just his love for Catherine, but his desire to include her in the ongoing story of the royal family, while honoring his mother's memory. The engagement announcement in November 2010 marked the end of their years as a private couple and the beginning of their journey as senior members of the British royal family. The period between their engagement and wedding was carefully managed to help Catherine transition from private citizen to public figure, with intensive training in royal protocol, public speaking, and the complex responsibilities that would define her future role. Catherine approached this preparation with characteristic determination and grace. She worked closely with royal staff to understand the history and tradition she would be expected to uphold, while also bringing her own perspectives about how the monarchy might evolve to remain relevant for a new generation. Her background as a commoner brought fresh insights to an institution that had sometimes struggled to connect with ordinary people. The engagement period also allowed the public to get to know Catherine as an individual, seeing her intelligence, warmth, and genuine commitment to the causes she would champion as a senior royal. Her first solo public engagements demonstrated her natural ability to connect with people from all backgrounds, suggesting that she would bring a more accessible and relatable approach to royal duties. William watched with pride as Catherine transformed herself while maintaining the qualities he had fallen in love with during their university years. She remained the same thoughtful, caring, intelligent woman he had met in that art history lecture, but she had also developed the confidence and skills needed to succeed in one of the world's most scrutinized public roles. Their relationship had evolved from young love into a mature partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep commitment to serving others together. The wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton on April 29, 2011, was more than just a royal ceremony. It was a global celebration that brought joy to millions during a time when the world desperately needed something beautiful and hopeful to unite around. The months of preparation had been intense, with every detail scrutinized and planned to perfection, but underneath all the pageantry was a simple truth. Two people who had fallen in love during their university years were finally making a permanent commitment to each other and to a lifetime of service. Catherine's transformation on her wedding day was breathtaking. The shy university student had become a radiant bride whose confidence and grace captured the attention of the entire world. Her Alexander McQueen wedding dress, with its delicate lace sleeves and elegant train, struck the perfect balance between royal tradition and modern sophistication. But it was her expression as she walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey that truly captured hearts worldwide. The look of a woman completely certain of her choice and genuinely happy to be marrying her best friend. William, waiting at the altar in his Irish Guards uniform, showed a vulnerability that the public rarely saw. As Catherine approached, his face revealed the depth of his emotion. Love, relief, and perhaps a touch of amazement that they had successfully navigated all the challenges to reach this moment. When he whispered, "You look beautiful," as she joined him at the altar, television cameras caught an intimate moment that made viewers around the world feel like witnesses to genuine romance rather than mere royal obligation. The ceremony itself struck a perfect balance between grand state occasion and personal celebration. While 2 billion people watched worldwide, the couple managed to create moments of genuine intimacy within the formal proceedings. Their exchange of vows felt authentic and heartfelt, and when William struggled slightly with placing the wedding ring on Catherine's finger, her gentle smile reassured him in a moment that spoke to the real relationship beneath the royal spectacle. The newly titled Duke and Duchess of Cambridge emerged from Westminster Abbey to scenes of unprecedented public celebration. The crowds lining the processional route were enormous and genuinely enthusiastic, representing a surge of positive feeling toward the royal family that hadn't been seen for decades. Catherine's natural warmth and accessibility, combined with William's growing confidence in his public role, suggested a new era for the British monarchy. Their first years of married life were carefully structured to allow Catherine to gradually take on increased royal responsibilities while maintaining some privacy for their relationship to continue developing. William continued his military service as an RAF search and rescue pilot based in Wales, which provided them with a relatively normal domestic life away from the intense scrutiny of London. Catherine used this period to find her footing as a senior royal, carefully selecting charitable causes that reflected her genuine interests and values. The couple's approach to royal duties reflected their shared desire to modernize the monarchy while respecting its traditions. They brought a more relaxed and accessible style to royal engagements, with Catherine particularly skilled at connecting with children and young people during public appearances. Her background as a commoner helped her relate to people from all walks of life in ways that felt authentic rather than dutiful. Their decision to start a family relatively quickly after marriage was welcomed by the public, who had watched their courtship with affection and were eager to see the next generation of royals. The announcement of Catherine's first pregnancy in December 2012 was met with worldwide excitement, though the early revelation was necessitated by severe morning sickness that required hospitalization. Catherine's first pregnancy was challenging both medically and in terms of public scrutiny. The intense media attention surrounding every aspect of her condition was overwhelming, with photographers and reporters analyzing her every public appearance for clues about her health and the baby's development. The pressure was particularly difficult during her bout with hyperemesis gravidarum, a severe form of morning sickness that required careful medical management. William was fiercely protective of his wife during this vulnerable period, working closely with palace staff to minimize unnecessary public appearances while ensuring that Catherine received the best possible medical care. His own memories of losing his mother made him particularly sensitive to the need to protect his wife and child from excessive media intrusion, leading to some tense negotiations with press organizations about coverage boundaries. The birth of Prince George in July 2013 represented a joyful culmination of their early married life and marked Catherine's transition into motherhood. The couple's decision to pose for photographs outside the hospital shortly after birth was a nod to royal tradition, but their obvious happiness and natural interaction with their newborn son created images that felt fresh and contemporary rather than merely ceremonial. Catherine's approach to motherhood reflected her desire to give her children as normal a childhood as possible while preparing them for their eventual royal roles. She was deeply involved in George's daily care, often handling routine childcare tasks herself rather than relying entirely on staff. This hands-on approach was partly influenced by her own close family relationships, but also represented a conscious decision to prioritize family life within their public responsibilities. The arrival of Princess Charlotte in May 2015 further completed their young family and demonstrated Catherine's growing confidence in her royal role. She had become more comfortable with media attention, more skilled at managing public appearances, and more certain about the causes she wanted to champion. Her focus on early childhood development and mental health reflected both personal interests and a strategic understanding of areas where she could make a meaningful impact. William's evolution during this period was equally significant. Military service had given him valuable leadership experience and a deeper appreciation for public service, while fatherhood had provided new perspective on the legacy he would eventually inherit. His relationship with Catherine had matured into a genuine partnership, where they supported each other's individual strengths while working together towards shared goals. The couple's third child, Prince Louis, born in April 2018, completed their family during a period when they had fully settled into their roles as senior royals. Catherine's confidence as both a mother and a public figure was evident in how seamlessly she managed the demands of three young children alongside increasing royal responsibilities. The family dynamic they created was warm and loving, with both parents clearly devoted to their children while maintaining their commitment to public service. Their approach to raising their children reflected lessons learned from William's own difficult childhood in the public eye. They worked hard to provide normal experiences like school drop-offs, family holidays, and birthday parties while gradually introducing the children to their royal heritage and future responsibilities. Catherine's influence was particularly important in creating a stable, nurturing home environment that prioritized family relationships above royal protocol. The couple's handling of various challenges during this period demonstrated their growing maturity and partnership strength. When William's younger brother Harry began dating Meghan Markle, Catherine played an important role in trying to welcome the American actress into the family, though cultural and personality differences made this relationship complex from the beginning. Similarly, when family tensions arose around Harry and Meghan's decision to step back from royal duties, William and Catherine maintained their focus on their own responsibilities while trying to support family relationships where possible. Their approach reflected a mature understanding that they couldn't control other people's choices but could ensure their own commitment to royal service remained steady and reliable. Catherine's influence on William became increasingly evident as they took on more significant royal roles. Her steady, practical approach balanced his sometimes more emotional responses to criticism or family difficulties. She helped him develop more effective communication skills for public appearances and encouraged his environmental activism while ensuring it remained appropriately non-political for his constitutional position. Their partnership also evolved to showcase each other's strengths in public appearances. William's military background and constitutional knowledge complemented Catherine's natural warmth and accessibility. Together, they could appeal to a broad range of people and causes, from veterans affairs to children's charities to environmental conservation. As they approached their 10th wedding anniversary, William and Catherine had successfully established themselves as the future of the British monarchy. They had modernized many aspects of royal life while maintaining respect for tradition, created a loving family environment for their children, and built public support for the institution they would eventually lead. Their relationship had evolved from university romance into a mature partnership capable of handling the unique pressures and responsibilities of their extraordinary lives. The quiet moment that would move an entire nation came unexpectedly on a crisp autumn morning in 2024, during what seemed like a routine visit to a children's hospital in Manchester. William and Catherine had arrived for a scheduled engagement, part of their ongoing work to highlight advances in pediatric care and mental health support for young patients. Nothing about the day suggested it would become one of the most emotionally powerful moments in modern royal history. The couple had spent the morning meeting with medical staff, touring new facilities, and speaking with families about their experiences. Catherine, now completely comfortable in her role after more than a decade of royal service, moved through the hospital with natural grace, stopping to chat with young patients, sitting on tiny chairs to be at a level with children, and listening intently to parents sharing their stories of hope and struggle. It was in the oncology ward where everything changed. 7-year-old Emma, a patient battling leukemia, had been eagerly waiting to meet the royal visitors. Her parents had mentioned that she had been following news of William and Catherine's family, particularly interested in Princess Charlotte, who was close to her own age. Emma had prepared a small drawing as a gift, a colorful picture of a family holding hands under a rainbow, with the words "Thank you for caring" written in careful, childish handwriting. When Catherine knelt down to receive Emma's gift, something extraordinary happened. The little girl, weakened by months of chemotherapy, but with eyes still bright with childhood wonder, reached up and gently touched Catherine's face. "You look sad today," Emma said softly, with the startling perceptiveness that children sometimes possess. "Are you worried about someone too?" The question caught Catherine completely off guard. She had been thinking about her own children that morning, imagining how she would feel if any of them were facing what Emma was going through. The weight of every hospital visit, every conversation with grieving families, every moment of witnessing human suffering had been accumulating in her heart for years. In that instant, Emma's innocent concern broke through all the royal composure and professional distance. Catherine's eyes filled with tears as she looked at this brave little girl who, despite her own serious illness, was worried about a stranger's sadness. "Sometimes I do worry," Catherine admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But meeting children like you reminds me how strong and brave people can be, even when things are very difficult." William, standing nearby, watched his wife's emotional response with growing concern. He had seen Catherine handle countless challenging situations with professional grace, but this moment was different. He could see that she was genuinely overwhelmed, not just by Emma's situation, but by the cumulative weight of years of meeting families in crisis, children facing uncertain futures, parents struggling with impossible circumstances. Emma, with the intuitive wisdom that serious illness sometimes brings to children, seemed to understand that Catherine needed comfort. She wrapped her thin arms around the Duchess's neck in a gentle hug. "It's okay to be sad," she whispered. "My mummy cries sometimes too, and Daddy says it's because she loves me so much it makes her heart too full." That simple statement of profound truth broke something open in Catherine's heart. All the careful emotional barriers she had constructed to handle the difficult aspects of royal duty crumbled in the face of a child's pure understanding of love and loss. Tears began flowing freely down her cheeks as she held Emma close. No longer the polished Duchess of Cambridge, but simply a mother moved to her core by a child's courage and wisdom. The moment was witnessed by dozens of people, hospital staff, other families, security personnel, and members of the media who had been following the royal visit. But rather than feeling intrusive, the scene felt sacred. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something authentic and deeply moving, a moment when royal duty and human emotion intersected in the most genuine way possible. William quickly moved to his wife's side, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder while greeting Emma himself. His own eyes were bright with unshed tears as he watched the interaction between his wife and the brave little girl. He understood better than anyone the emotional toll that royal duties could take, particularly visits involving sick children or families in crisis. "Thank you for your beautiful drawing," William said to Emma, his voice warm despite his own emotional response. "We have 3 children at home who would love to meet you. Would you like to draw them a picture too?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, and Catherine managed to compose herself enough to promise that they would hang the drawing in a special place at home where their children could see it every day. The interaction continued for several more minutes, with Catherine and William both sitting on the floor of the hospital room, talking with Emma about her treatment, her hopes, and her dreams for when she would be well enough to go home. When it was time to leave Emma's room, Catherine knelt down one last time to say goodbye. "You've taught me something very important today," she told the little girl. "You've shown me that it's okay to let your heart feel everything, even when it hurts. That's what makes us human, and that's what helps us care for each other." Emma smiled and pressed a small paper flower she had made during art therapy into Catherine's hand. "This is so you remember that even when things are hard, beautiful things can still grow," she said with surprising wisdom for someone so young. As William and Catherine left the hospital that day, both were quieter than usual. The experience had affected them profoundly, stripping away the ceremonial aspects of royal duty to reveal the deep human connections that make their work meaningful. Catherine carried Emma's paper flower carefully in her hand, treating it like the precious gift it was. The photographs and video footage from that hospital visit spread around the world within hours. Images of Catherine crying while embracing Emma, of William's tender support for his wife, of the 3 of them sitting together on the hospital floor, touched people across all cultures and backgrounds. Here was a moment of pure human emotion, unfiltered by protocol or public relations strategy. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media filled with messages of support for both Catherine and Emma, with people sharing their own stories of loss, hope, and the healing power of compassion. Many commented on how refreshing it was to see royalty showing genuine emotion, being vulnerable and real in a way that made them relatable rather than distant. More significantly, the moment sparked a broader conversation about the emotional challenges faced by those in public service roles, particularly when regularly encountering human suffering. Mental health advocates praised Catherine for showing that strength includes acknowledging emotional impact, not pretending to be unaffected by difficult situations. The hospital visit also marked a turning point in how William and Catherine approached their royal duties. They began speaking more openly about the emotional aspects of their work, the way that meeting families in crisis affected them personally, and their belief that showing genuine care and vulnerability was an important part of modern royal service. Emma's condition improved significantly over the following months, and she and her family were eventually invited to a private meeting with William, Catherine, and their children at Kensington Palace. The friendship that developed between the families became a source of joy and mutual support, with Emma becoming something of a surrogate little sister to George, Charlotte, and Louis. The paper flower that Emma gave Catherine that day was framed and placed in the family's private sitting room, where it served as a daily reminder of the power of human connection and the importance of allowing their hearts to be touched by the people they serve. The experience fundamentally changed how both William and Catherine approached their royal roles, bringing greater authenticity and emotional openness to their public engagements. Years later, when Emma had fully recovered and grown into a confident young woman, she would often reflect on that hospital meeting as a pivotal moment in her own life. Not just because she met royalty, but because she witnessed adults showing that it was okay to feel deeply, to care so much that it sometimes overwhelmed you, and to find strength in vulnerability rather than pretending to be unaffected by life's challenges. The moment between Catherine and Emma became legendary not because of its royal connections, but because it represented something universal about human compassion, the healing power of genuine connection, and the courage required to let our hearts remain open despite the pain that caring inevitably brings. It reminded an entire nation that true strength lies not in emotional distance, but in the willingness to be moved by others' experiences and to respond with authentic love and concern. In the end, this quiet, powerful moment in a hospital room changed not just how people viewed William and Catherine, but how they understood the very nature of public service, royal duty, and the profound connections that can develop when we allow ourselves to be truly present with those who need our care and support.